This is the usual reminder that meeting attendees are advised it's a formal meeting. I can advise members of the public will be given an opportunity to speak during the public open session, but not at other times. Meetings being filmed, and by being present, attendees are deemed to have agreed to be filmed and to the use of those images and sound recordings. I can advise that attendees should not disclose any personal information of individuals, as this would infringe the data protection rights of that individual. And also always please mute your microphones when not speaking, please. First item on the agenda, apologies of absence. I believe we have Councillor Jones and Councillor Sajid. I think everyone else is here with us. So we'll move swiftly on to item 2, which is declarations of interest. So this is to receive statutory declarations of interest from members in relation to disclosable pecuniary interests in any agenda item and non-pecuniary. Councillor Patel.
Pecuniary interest in 9B and 11B.
9B and 11B. Okay. Thank you. Okay, I think we're depending on what the nature of that. So is it a pecuniary or non-pecuniary? So can you be specific, please? Given that, does that cause us an issue? If it's a pecuniary interest, then participation, you need to be not be involved in it. Okay, any others, members? Okay, so we will move then on to the next one, which is Town Mayor's announcement. I've got no announcements as such, but what I will say is that you will have seen in front of you there are 2 additional items which are sort of urgent items that we wouldn't normally put in front of you at the last minute, but given the nature of the items, we felt that it's important to bring to this this meeting. So that is the item relating to Lawrence Road, given the short deadline in relation to responding to central beds. So I appreciate you've only received the papers this evening. Happy to put this one sort of towards the back end of the agenda, so that you're able to, if you want to input into it, or we can make a decision not to, depending on how members feel. But the deadline to response on this is the 22nd of September. So I felt it appropriate to bring it. If members then feel it's not appropriate to respond at this stage and respond in a different format, we can deal with that at that stage. The second item is the item in relation to BATPC county committee elections. You have the paper in front of you. What I'm going to do with this one is I'm going to ask Councillor Russell to do a bit more of an explanation. It's pretty straightforward. The report is there. But given that Councillor Russell is the current chairman, I think it's appropriate to pass it over to Councillor Russell to do a bit more of an explanation. So that's the sort of 2 items. I'm going to do Lawrence Road later in the agenda, but the BATPC, I'm going to bring that one as the first item straight after public open session. Okay, thank you. Councillor Russell, if you don't mind, did you want to say anything in relation to this?
Have you finished Mayor's announcement?
I've finished what I need to say, thank you.
Only there was the issue of access for all before we go on to BATPC.
Carry on, Toy, I forgot about that one, thank you.
Okay. I've been attending the access for all meetings that are convened by Richard Fuller about the access to the station for less able people. So we had a meeting last week. The Network Rail team are still preparing the detailed design. They expect to have that finished and the new costings by the end of November, and the committee that needs to give the financial go-ahead at Network Rail, the final financial go-ahead, is on the 19th of December. So hopefully after that they will have the go-ahead with the new design, and that design does include the staircases as well as the lifts, because we had an issue earlier on about the staircases being removed. They hope to start on site in January doing some enabling work. It's a long project, so they'll start in January 24, but they should be finished and it should be available for use by the end of December 2024, so end of next year. We had a report from GTR. The new toilets at the station opened on the 20th of June. But they're only open when the station is staffed. obviously there's an issue there, and staffing hours will be reviewed dependent on the ticket office consultation that we discussed a meeting or two ago. And that also affects the lifts as well as the toilets. So the lifts will only be available and the toilets will only be available if the station is staffed. So we wait to hear from GTR, probably not until next spring, how that's going to go. The transport interchange was discussed. It usually is because it's been done in conjunction with the Access for All. Apparently the problem that they're experiencing is where the two cambers of the two different roads meet. So it's Station Road and the exit for the buses. And where the cambers meet, there's a dip, which means that the bus front wheels go into the dip, and then that causes the further back on the bus to ground. So you'll have seen that it's been used by coaches, but I think the issue is that coaches have a higher suspension than the buses that are used. So the contractor, Galliford Try, are going to remedy that, but we don't have a date for opening. And finally, Lindsell's Crossing. There's been very little happening on Lindsell's Crossing for a few months, but apparently the site will be reopened next month. They will then lift in place the ramps on the eastern side and finish connecting all of that. And then at Christmas, they'll have possession of the line and they will lift the western ramps over the line. Then they have to complete fitting those, but they're expecting Lindsell's Crossing to be open by the end of March 2024. So that's an update on where we are with the various projects to do with the station and the railway. Thank you.
Thank you. So, yes, if you don't mind, then just giving a brief update in relation to BATP, so that would be helpful. And as I say, what will, if there's anything else other than what's here, I think it's fairly straightforward, but please feel free to.
Just to explain that this is a process that happens every 4 years. It's the first annual meeting of BATPC after the parish council elections. So people are nominated to serve on the county committee for 4 years. You've got the forms in front of you. I am obviously putting myself forward for nomination. I've been nominated before and I've been vice chairman and I'm currently chairman. So I'll be completely open about that. If there are more nominations from parish councils than there are places on the committee, then there is an election at the annual meeting in October. As far as town councils are concerned, all the town councils except one are in central Bedfordshire. There are 7 places for town councillors. The other places, the other 14 are for parish councils. So what's being asked tonight is that you will nominate somebody from amongst our midst to be nominated for the county committee for the next 4 years. And if I could just say that BATPC is one of lots of county trusts up and down the country. It feeds into NALC, which is the National Association of Local Councils. It has support from NALC. We used them very recently in the PWLB loan process because PWLB loans have to go through the county association before they go into government. We are classed as a larger council as far as NALC are concerned, so we do have what's called direct access. So if there's an issue that the clerk wants to check with lawyers or anybody else at NALC, he can do so, whereas BATPC acts as the conduit for the smaller parish councils where they may only have a part-time clerk and have a legal issue. That's all I wanted to say, apart from the fact that BATPC does provide training courses for parish and town councillors. And there are things like chairing, there are things like HR, there are finance, communications. So there are courses there that are available for councillors. I don't think I need to say any more. Chairman.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Russell. Councillor North.
Well, I would like to nominate Madeline Russell as a
I'm
representative.
not doing that at this stage. I'm going to go into the agenda, and we'll deal with that as part of the main agenda. So not at this stage, if you don't mind. Okay. So the next item then is going to be the public open session. So do we have any members of the public present or not online? Any member of the public wishing to speak for any indication? No. Okay. So next item 5, invite speaker. We have none. Next one then is item 6, members' questions. Members, any questions, please? Councillor Skilton.
Yeah, it's just recently I've noticed and have been contacted by residents as well about an increase of antisocial driving, I suppose, for want of a better word, in the town, speeding, especially the use of Asda car park and Rose Lane as a bit of a racetrack, and also potentially illegal modifications to cars. I just wondered if that's something that the town council could take up for our work with the police in terms of our, I think Councillor Patel is our police liaison, and if that's something we could raise as a town council.
Peter, I'm going to ask you to make a response on that.
Yeah, so I think there's probably 2 strands we can take opportunity of. Number 1, obviously I can work with a nominated member connected to the police committee. But at the same time, then I can directly report it to the responsible inspector, and I can bring a response back to council.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Strong.
Make an observation on that.
Absolutely.
The community safety group has the speed camera. I wonder whether they might be able to carry out some speed checks there, because it may not be as forceful as the police, but it can at least act as a deterrent.
Yeah, I am a Speedwatch volunteer, and we do deploy it where we need to.
Okay, thank you very much. Any other members' questions, please? See no more. Okay, so next item, then we're going to do minutes and recommendations of meetings. So we're page 6. For accuracy on page 6 first, please. Any issues? No. Page 7. Councillor Agnew, page 7.
The members' questions, number 6, paragraph, 4th paragraph. Council Woodhead, starting. The phrase has to be reworded where it says prepared for something else use other than some other use.
Yeah, I think it's a fair point. I think, yeah. So there's a slight wording issue there.
Yeah.
We'll come up with something on that. Yeah. Yes. Some other, exactly. Okay. Anything else on page 7? Page 8. Page 9, page 10, and page 11. Councillor Skilton.
Yeah, just item 15D. Do we need to record that members of the appeals committee were asked to leave at that point?
I'm going to ask the clerk whether that should be noted.
Yes, I think it should. We'll make adjustments.
Thank you. Okay, so we're back to the agenda again. So we'll go back then for matters arising in relation to the same. We've got the finance and general purpose meeting, beg your pardon. So the minutes of F&GP. So these are primarily to note, unless there's anything in particular that you wish to highlight, given that these are going to be reviewed by the committee. I think it's next week, Councillor Strong.
Mr. Mayor, I think it's actually, we can only note them, we can't approve them or otherwise. So if we just
absolutely, yeah. So we note it here, but given that they're going to be looked at next week, so unless there's anything particular, which I don't think there is. So we'll move on back onto then the matters arising. Item 8, matters arising in relation to the minutes of the council meeting. So again, page 6, matters arising. Page 7, Councillor Alban.
Thank you. Yeah, at the bottom of the page it actually goes on to the next page. So I asked about the bus gateway and if the item will come back to another council meeting, and it does say it would be on the 12th of September, which is today. I note it's not on the agenda, but I wonder if it even needs to be looked at again now. It's pretty much in the past, I think.
I think it is, and you're quite right to point out the oversight. It's certainly, I hadn't picked up on that. So, but are you happy for it? Members happy for it to not come back, given the information that we have, or do you feel it's appropriate to come back at a subsequent meeting? I'm not getting an indication one way. There's a Councillor Russell.
Well, I think we were told that it's signage, not a physical gate, which is what some of us were concerned about. So I don't think we need to do anything at this stage.
Everyone else happy with that approach? Okay, in which case it won't come back to a future meeting. Thank you. Anything else then on page 7 or 8? Page 9, Councillor Albion.
At the top of the page, it's actually 9B. Members resolve to defer this item until a report comes back to council. Do we have any indication of when that might be?
I'm going to pass that back to Peter.
Yeah, so we've now got some contextual information connected to likely demand, and it's probably best, I think, if I just brief members outside of today's forum, but I can discuss it now if you wish, but I think it's probably best dealt with out of here. But at least we've got all the information now to enable us to make a decision. So, yeah.
I think the important thing here is that it does come back to members with a proper report with proper information, and we don't have that on this agenda. It did say it will come back on a future agenda, a future meeting, and you're quite right, it's not here, but it will come to a future one. Thank you. Anything else on page 9? Page 10. Councillor Thomas.
Yes, it mentions mentions the big eats again at 13A, and it says there's another one this Thursday. Is the council going to advertise it on its comms?
Can you do an update on the big eats?
So the next event is this Thursday indeed, the Big Eats, and it's going to be slightly larger than the one that's just happened. So I think we've got up to 9 different trucks, if you like, arriving for that. And in terms of advertising, we're using the same kind of method as we have been essentially before. So there hasn't been any change on that.
So, Town Council social media. What other means are we using to advertise the event?
Yeah. So at the moment, it's just that exactly. I mean, there is scope in future certainly to go to other sort of other formats and media types as we build momentum with the event.
Okay, so I think the important thing here is we've got an event on Thursday. If to get the event successful, it's important that we advertise it. I'm sure there are communications happening. So if there's nothing that we may need to review the comms tomorrow to ensure that tomorrow and Thursday we've got something going out so that it's advertised as effectively as possible. I'm going to go to Councillor Woodhead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just to follow on from that, really. I think last time we had a banner on the way in on the main road off Shortmead Street on the way to town. I've not been down there, so I don't know if it's there this time, but it'd be great if we could resurrect that because it's very prominent. And then obviously continue with the social media. We have still got sort of 36, 48 hours. So if we can try and do that. And also members, can you tell your friends, family, neighbours as well? We want to make it a success as well. So it's incumbent on colleagues here to also tell people as well as using the council's main comms as well. Thank you.
I'm going to go to Councillor Strawn first, and after that, Mr. Zaney. Go to Councillor Strawn.
Appreciate I should know the answer, but have we advertised it on our website, and does that give timings and everything else? Because if we haven't, we should do.
I have to say, personally, I don't know the exact answer to that question, and I'm going. There's an element of. So I think what we need to do. The answer to the question is we will look at that and ensure that if it's not on there, it will be over the next 24 hours.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. That's satisfactory.
Okay, Corinne, did you want to go?
Thanks. Just to confirm as well that the banner is on display at the Dan Alburn car park as well. On the north end of town.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. Anything else then on page 10? Councillor Russell.
Just a note from our meeting with Barclays Bank staff on Friday that they may need to be on the square longer than the 6 weeks, because we're hearing that the library may not be open at the where would be the beginning of October. So I don't know whether our officers are aware of that, but they just need to be in contact with Barclays over that.
Thanks, Councillor Russ. I think the clerk has noted that. Okay, page 11 then, anything on page 11? No, okay, so move back to the main agenda. So what I did say is we would do the first item here would be the nomination to the BATP. So apologies, Councillor. Also, I understand, did you wanted to speak?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would like to nominate Councillor Russell as our representative on the ATPC.
Do we have a seconder for that? Councillor Strong?
Seconded.
Okay. Do we have any other nominations? Councillor Strong.
I note that Councillor North is a current representative on that, if I've understood it correctly. Is it possible for us to nominate him as well?
No. Yeah, exactly. So there's some shaking of heads. So you have your answer. So,
No, well, if I may just explain, I'm not sure that I am a representative of Biggleswade Town Council, actually, because the situation was they didn't have enough elected people to fill the number of vacancies for town councils. And so they asked for further nominations, and I was nominated under that heading, if you like, and thereby was elected to the meeting through that route rather than this route that we're talking about now.
Okay, so we have Councillor Russell proposed and seconded. All those in favour then, please. And that's unanimous. Thank you very much. Okay, so the next item then is I'm going to move on to the new town council meeting schedule. So I'll introduce, shall I? So you'll have seen the report, you've seen the detail. The principle is that we will have a schedule for one council meeting per month, which is the second Tuesday, and that we will keep the fourth Tuesday free in the event that there is a requirement for for want of a better expression, an overspill additional meeting to deal with any matters that were unable to be dealt with. You'll note that there are now there are actually 4 committee meetings within the municipal year, albeit we haven't got all the dates showing, but if you backtrack to the start of the municipal year, there are now 4 committee meetings. So the items to note is that the Personnel Committee has been pushed back to the 7th of November, and that's in following sort of feedback from Councillor Russell in relation to, as Chair of the Personnel Committee, in terms of staff reviews, etc., try and get those tied in at the right time. We've got Biggleswade Joint Committee is on the 18th, and what we're trying to do here is to, wherever possible, not have meetings in the same week. So if we could tie it up so that the joint committee isn't in the same week as another council meeting, but given that the joint committee is not within the town council's remit, we are where we are with that this year. So the 2 joint committee meetings, 18th of January and the 25th of April, I don't believe was actually on the original schedule. So that's been slotted in there, subject to confirmation with the chairman of the committee. There are a couple of other changes. So bearing in mind that we agreed to only have 1 meeting per month, the exception to that is January, where we have a full council on the 9th of January, and then on the 23rd of January, which is the 4th Tuesday, we've got specifically a preset meeting only, and that's the purpose of that meeting. So we're able to discuss that, and that's focused on that. But we've also got the F&GP the week before, so albeit there's going to be items that may sort of flip over into both. It gives us an opportunity to discuss the precept in detail, which we haven't perhaps been able to do in the past, or we have, but we've got 1 meeting focused on the precept. The PLOS meeting has moved, I think was originally on the 23rd of January. So that's moved to the 30th of January. the TCM meeting, additional meeting is popped in onto the 16th of April. And the original date of the annual assembly was the 23rd of April. So, and that was the third Tuesday of the month. That's now been moved to the 5th Tuesday on the basis that we might well need a meeting on the 4th Tuesday. So it's appropriate to have the annual assembly after all the council meetings. So I think that probably explains the rationale behind the meeting schedule, probably more than it needs to be. So but there's been some thought gone into the reasons why we've made the changes. And I think perhaps I should just say one other additional thing. For the new municipal year, once we know the dates of the joint committee, so the Central Beds full council meetings, then the town council and joint committee meetings can sort of tie in with that. So, Councillor Thomas.
Is the 30th of April annual assembly definitely 7:30? It's the only one that's 7:30.
It is. It is.
Okay, that's deliberate. Okay, that's fine.
Councillor Alban.
Thank you. So we actually resolved to accept the trial pending an acceptable response from CBC regarding response deadlines to planning application feedback from the council. Have we had a response from CBC and is it acceptable?
I'm going to pass that to Corinne.
Thank you. I can confirm that we obviously took that action on board from the last town council meeting. We spoke with the senior planning officer, one of two, I think, at CBC, who confirmed that by moving to a single monthly meeting, essentially, we would be more in keeping with the majority of councils within their area in terms of CBC. So they saw no issues or problems with that at all. Essentially.
Thank you. Councillor Strong.
I appreciate we've had that verbally. Could we please get that in writing?
Corinne, thank you.
Certainly.
Any other comments before Councillor Skilton?
Yeah, just with the 9:30 finish, it's a hard finish of 9:30, and we would then defer to an extraordinary meeting or the next meeting. Is there any mechanism to not do that if it was particularly pressing on that evening? I appreciate I was at the debate when we talked about that, but it did kind of go on a bit, and I'm not sure that is how I remember it being resolved. I thought there was something subject to a standing order being suspended.
I'm quite clear on this because you're right, it did go backwards and forwards, and there was an element around standing orders reflecting a late finish, and there was an element of shall we not have a hard finish and shall we? I think, and I'm quite clear that we did resolve to have a hard finish. However, there is clearly an issue with that. It depends on how you interpret the hard finish. If you are in the middle of an item that is taking 3/4 of an hour, at what point do you make a decision? Do you say, actually, we're going to finish at 9:30, irrespective of making any decision, or do we allow ourselves the opportunity to extend beyond? And our resolution does not allow for that. So I think the reasonable interpretation of it, though, is that we should not be. We should carry on with an item that is in progress, but that we should not have any additional items, given that that's what we agreed. However, again, members may feel differently, having seen the minutes, but to make a change, it does require 5 members of the council to agree that there needs to be an amendment to it. So happy to receive that in a future meeting if that's what you feel is appropriate, but I don't think we can do that at this meeting, given the item is on the agenda there. So, Councillor Knight.
Thank you. So I agree with the concern that Councillor Skilton raised. I wasn't at the meeting either, but it feels like the chairman should have some discretion to continue the current item. And if everyone's happy to interpret it that way, maybe we don't need to revisit it. But if there's any doubt, then perhaps we should. I think in terms of the 6-month trial, are we clear when the 6-month trial expires? It would be useful to have a date so we don't forget to review whether we think it's worked in 6 months' time. I wouldn't want to miss that deadline. But other than that, can I propose the recommendation as set out that we adopt this schedule for a 6-month period, please?
Okay, thank you. Were you seconding or did you seconding? So I've got Councillor Strawn and Councillor Albo and then Councillor Russell. Councillor Strawn.
Technically, I think under standing orders, we can suspend it to allow the debate to continue. And technically, we should have been doing that anyway over the past years when we've extended beyond a certain time, but we shouldn't. Okay. But I think we can deal with it by a suspension of standing orders if necessary.
Councillor Albo?
Yeah, I looked through standing orders today and I could see no reference to that. I think it may have been there in the past, but if we're going to go through this trial, and if we have a specific date that it would end on, it would make sense in my mind that we review standing orders to see if there is anything we should put in there regarding stop times.
Thank you. Any others before I go to the clerk? Councillor Russell.
I'm concerned about whether we have a very important item under exempt and we finish the last item on non-exempt and we're at 9:30. And I think that's something else that we have to be aware of and see how it works out, because we do sometimes have some difficult issues in exempt and issues that really shouldn't be put back. So I just put that into the mix, but I agree that we do this 6-month trial and we see as we go along how it works out and whether we do need to adjust standing orders or put something into standing orders.
Okay. Peter, you wanted to say something?
Just for absolute clarity, if you look at our standing orders, then our standing orders are specific about the nature of start time. They are not specific in regard to end time. The only thing that you actually have in statute, which actually this isn't even in statute, NAUC recommend, if you want to take that on board, that meetings should be no longer than 2 hours. It's just a recommendation, that's all it is. It's not built into statute, but we have no end times on our standing orders.
Thank you. So I think I have a proposal from Councillor Knight and the seconder. Before we go to the vote, given that we've had some feedback around the hard finish and I think there may be some scope, should a member feel it appropriate to do so, to bring something back. I'm not going to propose it for the chair and it's not for this meeting, but if you feel it is appropriate to make a change to allow the resolution to be amended, I appreciate the standing orders. We can essentially, the chairman could change, but I'd prefer it so that we've got a clear resolution that says, if that's what we want to do, we do it formally. So, but I'll leave that for now. But I have a proposer and a seconder to that item. Councillor Strawn, did you want to say something?
Yes, Councillor Knight mentioned specifically the end date for the period. Could we actually put the end date in that at this stage rather than just saying 6 months, because that would be 6 months from today, theoretically. So could we have an end date?
Chairman, could I suggest we say the end of the municipal year, the end of March?
Does that fit in? That's not 6 months though, is it?
It's 6.5.
Is it? My goodness me, already. So members, given that Councillor Russell has made that, I think it's a sort of a proposed amendment. Councillor Knight, are you happy with that?
I accept that as an amendment.
Excellent. So on that basis, all those in favour, please show. We have none against. That's unanimous. Thank you very much. Well done. Right. Back to then the next item on the agenda. So this is Lawnside. You have the item in front of you. This is the part-time no entry on Lawnside. Members, I saw Councillor Patel, you're leaving us for a while. Councillor Knight.
Thank you. So I appreciate the vital importance of keeping parents and children safe, and I recognise that there are real challenges with the location of that school and the access road. The proposal seems very light, something of this complexity with a half-page document. As far as I can see, the time is actually wrong because the school's open until 3:30, and I think the proposal is that the road would reopen at 3:30. there's no mention of any consultation with the residents, and there are a number of residents in the road. My worry is the impact on residents, and indeed, there are teachers using the school, and there are car parking spaces there too. In particular, how do residents get access to their property within this time, and how do deliveries get made to residents and businesses within those times? And again, there's no evidence that's being considered. You could imagine some sort of residence parking scheme, but how would that work for delivery drivers? And you could imagine, deliveries won't be made because drivers just wouldn't be aware. So I do wonder if this is the right solution. I wonder whether, a 5 mile an hour speed limit would be more appropriate. To be honest, I think the strategic answer is to compulsory purchase the 4 properties to the west of the road and widen the road and do it properly. And it just feels like this is trying to do it on the cheap in a way that's going to have a significant impact on the residents. I'd like to hear other views, but it doesn't feel well thought out to me.
Thank you, Councillor Knight. Councillor Strawn, then Councillor Skilton.
I share a lot of Councillor Knight's concerns, because not only is it residents and emergency vehicles, teachers, etc., possibly getting to school, but theoretically they should then be stopping people actually leaving by vehicles in that stage if they're making it traffic free. You also have another issue. I imagine that it's been put in partly because children have been dropped off at school, which has created issues there, but that's not going to end. Cars will be then using Lawrence Road and parking there and creating problems there. So I think there are greater implications than just a time limit and closing it off. I can see why it's being done, but I'm not certain that it's anything like practical. I think some further consideration needs to be given to that to make sure that there are solutions before they just solve one problem to create a lot more.
Thank you, Councillor Strawn. Councillor Skilton.
When I initially saw this, I thought it looks quite good. It's effectively creating lawn side as what you'd call a school street, and they do happen in lots of urban areas where you prevent vehicles accessing the school for drop off and pick up times. Because of the very shortness of the road, it's not much of a hardship for people to drive to the bottom of that road, and so potentially this proposal could actually move that problem. So I would suggest it probably needs to go further and make larger sections of that neighbourhood school street, and you can make provision for access for deliveries and residents. Amend the traffic order, and you can put a plate under the sign that says accept access. There are also other ways of doing it, depending on how the council CBC does its enforcement. You can have what you'd call a white list for registration numbers, and then people that have need can demonstrate need, maybe blue badge holders or people that use taxis to get to school if they have mobility issues, and there are lots of other reasons as well. They can be added to a white list. So maybe the detail is a bit light from CBC, but I personally would actually like to see this go a lot further.
Thank you, Councillor Skilton. Councillor Woodhead.
Thank you. I think in a way, like Councillor Skilton, at first glance, I was reasonably supportive, but I think there's still so many questions that need to be answered, and I think I share Councillor Knight's concerns that I don't think they've been adequately addressed, and I think it's possibly the kind of wrong solution for a known problem. I mean, it's very clear, I think, that the Lawnside School in particular has an extremely small catchment area, and it concerns me the amount of vehicles that are using the school as a broader point. It also pushes the issue onto the bulk car park on the bulk, and lots of parents use that as well. So I think there's actually a broader issue that maybe central beds need to get to grips with in terms of, parents drop off, parking, etc., and maybe this isn't the right solution to it, and it may well, if it goes in the way that it's described, it may well push the problem onto Lawrence Road, which we may come to later for other reasons, onto other streets. So I think they need to have a bit more of a holistic solution rather than just sort of whacking this particular issue that doesn't really actually solve, in my view, doesn't really solve the problem anyway. But there is a problem that needs solving, but this probably isn't it. So yeah, that's kind of my sort of take on it, I think, from seeing it most days in the morning.
Okay. Anyone else? Councillor Gilchin.
I think, I share Councillor Skilton's concerns really. And my daughter goes to the school, and I think the safety of the children walking up and down there, there's loads of things to consider. Obviously, there's 2 schools there. There's special needs school, which is probably going to have mobility issues. So there's a larger problem. I think CBC haven't given us much detail. Have they done any surveys? Have they seen what cars, who's travelling up there? Is it the cars are there for mobility issues, or is it just general parenting either being lazy or they've had to travel far distances to get to that school? Yeah, I think we need a bit more from CBC and a lot more work and thought go into it. But the safety issue, I'm really for, like Councillor Wood and Councillor Skilton, because say my child goes there and the safety of the children is paramount, right? But there's certainly a lot more work I think needs to come back to us to propose that.
Okay, and I think just from the chair, the one thing that did strike me in addition is that the timings don't seem to make any sense anyway. And if you're a parent that's taking your child to school, and there's no entry between 7:30 and 8:30, and the school is open until 9 o'clock, then you'll just ignore it because you'll take it. So there's lots of things that are wrong with this. But so I guess what I'm looking for, and I vowed I'm not going to make proposals from the chair, so I am looking for a proposal from the floor to encompass some of the thoughts that you've just given. Go ahead, Councillor.
Would you like me to try and the council has grave concerns over the implementation of the policy because of practical considerations, although supporting the principle for the reasons that we have just outlined previously about the practical elements of timing, knock-on effects on some other roads, access,
etc. So I think what you're saying is the principle of the discussion is fine. Yes, we would normally like a very clear resolution, but I think if we're happy members, we can make sure that what does go to as a response does meet what we've discussed here. It wouldn't be I'm not most comfortable with that approach, but I think otherwise we're going to go back over the same ground again. So if you're happy members, we will put something together, share it with you so that you know what's been sent. On that basis, then all those in favour of that approach, please show. We have no one against. Thank you. So Councillor Patel can come back in.
Quickly, it won't affect Councillor Patel's attendance, but it does say we should comment by the 8th of September. Is that an issue?
No. It was extended. You're quite right. So Councillor Gilch has pointed out that there was it does say by the 8th, but there was an extension to it. Okay, so the next item on the agenda then, going back to my page here. So we have then planning applications.
Chairman, were we going to take the second part of the Lawrence Road one at this stage?
We can do actually. Why not? Let's do that. So it makes sense. Ties in. Thank you. I was going to do it at the end, give people time, but it seems appropriate to do so now. If members are happy to do it at this point. Okay. Thank you then. So you have the paper in front of you. Peter, is there anything else that we need to add in relation to this? You don't have papers. Okay, that's okay. That makes it a little bit more challenging for members that haven't got it. My apologies, Councillor Russell. I thought they'd been shared. As I say, we wouldn't normally have this approach, but it felt to be the right thing to do given the importance of this and the fact that it hadn't come to, it wasn't on this agenda. And essentially the reason was that the notification did not come directly to the clerk. So as a result, there's an issue there which is now resolved, but it was highlighted the fact that this hadn't come directly to the clerk, and as a result, hadn't then made its way onto the agenda. So we felt it was appropriate to make it an urgent item. So happy members to sort of take your time for a couple of minutes if you wish to read further, unless someone wishes to make any comments while others are reading. Happy to take comments. Go ahead, Councillor Skilton, while you're...
I am wholly in support of this proposal, and again, I don't think it goes far enough. I think that this road should actually be closed at that junction to prevent all through traffic there, because that is such a rat run between Potton Road and Crab Lane. You can avoid most of the one-way system going both ways, and the fact that this one-way section is so short makes it difficult to enforce, and I think it will be routinely ignored. And I think it's also worth noting that this is a really dangerous junction on National Cycle Route 51, and there is absolutely no cycle infrastructure at all on this part of that cycle route, and I cycle it every day, and coming around that bend, going right into sort of past, basically heading towards Potton Road, you don't know if you're going to get wiped out by a car coming the other way, and so it needs something doing there quite urgently. And I've previously written to CBC in a personal capacity expressing my concerns about this area before.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Skilton. Councillor Woodhead.
Thank you. Like Councillor Skilton, I go past this, although on foot most days, and I'm in favour of the proposal. I think as well, it's an extremely narrow and quite a dangerous corner. So I think one way of trying to sort of improve the safety on it, and obviously cars can be double parked along Lawrence Road as well, which really narrows the traffic down. Yeah, I think it's there has been a number of accidents, I believe, there as well. Some local residents on Lawrence Road have been in touch with me, and I think they seemed that some action needed, certainly like this, needed to be taken. So I think I'm under the impression a lot of residents are in favour of it as well. That's what they've told me. So I think it's a good idea. I think I'm happy to sort of go with the plans here and see how it goes. And I guess we could always revisit this, but I think it's a good starting point. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Albo.
Yeah, I'm just wondering how cars will turn round. Well, not just cars, bin lorries. So if you're heading down Lawrence Road towards Crab Lane, and okay, maybe I've worked it out. You just keep going. It was short notice. Yeah. Okay. In that case, I think Councillor Skilton's suggestion that it's closed off is an interesting one. Maybe this should be reviewed after a time to see how it works, because there is an enforcement issue there. You can imagine cars ignoring it, vehicles ignoring it, and just carrying on down Lawrence Road anyway. So I think this will need to be reviewed after it's put in, because it may be that it does throw up some problems in addition to solving some.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to go with Councillor Strawn, then Councillor Thomas, then Councillor Knight, then Councillor Russell.
Couple of observations. If it was closed off totally, then it would stop access to some of the properties down just off Lawrence Road. At the end of the blue. My comment was actually, I could profess ignorance. It says on the notice to the junction of Crab Lane. Is the junction of Crab Lane where they've indicated it on this plan? Because it looks as though Crab Lane would in fact be the main running road past there. Is this Lawrence Road, Chestnut Avenue, or is this actually Crab Lane at where it's got that entrance? Because I'd have taken it from just thinking about it fairly logically that Crab Lane would have been the junction further down past the medical centre. So it's not.
As an old Biggleswade person, I'm afraid you're wrong.
No, well, I'm asking the question. So it is Crab Lane. Is it is that point? Is it actually Crab Lane?
Crab Lane goes as far as Lawrence Road.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it also goes over the bridge. So
I think the history of it is the fact that Crab Lane goes between Stratton House and what is the opticians along that lane, and then round up over the bridge. So Chestnut Avenue is at that junction, from that junction to the point in the bulk. I think I'm accurate in that respect. So, which is why you've got Chestnut Avenue and Crab Lane. Crab Lane goes over the bridge.
Or goes right, he's got two Crab Lanes briefly.
Potentially, yes, or joins, yes. Okay, I think I had Councillor Thomas, yep.
Yeah, we were talking about the Lawrence Road bit from where the pub is. It's almost always full of 2 rows of cars and you can't actually get down. So there's one way anyway at the minute. And I got stuck down there one day when it was an ambulance coming the other way and we struggled to get out of its way. So I think it's a good idea. But what they're doing is putting into action what is almost de facto what it is now. So it seems like a sensible idea.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Thomas. Councillor Knight.
So Councillor Thomas nearly touched on one thing that's worrying me. Obviously, an ambulance depot and the fire station are pretty much adjacent. So would that no entry apply to emergency vehicles? It may not be a route a fire engine would want to take, but if there was an emergency on Lawrence Road, it would seem perverse to send them such a long way around to get there. So I wonder if that's something to review. I think the other thing that worries me, if you're travelling along Lawrence Road at the moment, the fact that you know a vehicle might be about to come around the corner head on, is probably something that moderates your speed. And if you remove that possibility, is it going to lead to an increase in speed on Lawrence Road?
Okay, thank you. I think it's Councillor Russell next.
Thank you. I'd like to actually make a proposal because I'm very much in favour of this. I did go to the site meeting and discussed it with highways officers. Other councillors were there. I think you were yourself, Chairman. It's not ideal, but it's a very difficult situation. And I take on board cycling safety and all the rest of it. The other thing is that residents in Lawrence Road are concerned about the parking. We did talk on the site visit of possibly making more parking where the pavement is built out, but would be wide enough to take prams or mobility scooters or whatever. But I note that they haven't done anything about that. And what I understand is that if they tackle parking, they will end up putting a scheme in where there are less parking spaces for the residents. And of course, the residents don't have any off-street parking. So I think that's why they haven't tackled parking on this one. The idea of making it one way and making it one way the way it is that it's the opposite to the balk. If you closed off Lawrence Road altogether or made it one way the other way, then you're making it a very long way round for people to get into the town. In fact, it'd be almost impossible. It put an awful lot of pressure on our famous Eagle Farm Road, Drove Road junction. So I'd like to make a proposal that says that we are concerned, we're broadly in favour, but we are concerned about how it's going to be enforced, whether the existing parking will have an impact on it, what will be the effect on emergency vehicles, and we'd like to see a review date maybe after 12 months to see how the scheme has gone. So I'd like to make that proposal.
Do I have a second of that proposal? So there's a number of seconders. Anyone else wish to comment before we go to the vote? No. Okay then, so all those in favour of that proposal then, please. It's unanimous then, thank you very much. Well done. Okay. So next items then are item 10, planning applications. So 10A, 58 Rowan Crescent, a single story side extension and installation of new access ramp at front and rear of the property. Comments, please. Councillor Barrett.
And it is more of a comment and a concern rather than an objection, but the property does have a small side extension stroke flat roof at the moment that's going to be knocked down, and then a larger flat roofed extension being put on there. My concern would be a flat roof over that sort of area is usually a concern, and a pitch roof might actually be a better solution. So it's not an objection, but I think if we're going to respond, it would be nice to say we don't object, but could consideration be made to a pitch roof?
Okay, thank you. Any other comments, members? So are members happy for that, for Councillor Barrett's comment to go on our response? So thank you. So on that basis, I'm seeing nods there. So I'm going to go to the vote, because why not, we should do so. All those in favour of that, please. Thank you. No one against. Next one is 43 St John's Street. That's 10B, single storey front porch extension. Comments, please. Subject to neighbours. Okay, thank you. Let's unanimous by the look of it. Next one is 10C, the closed cottage, 17A Shortmead Street, Biggleswade. Works to tree protection, etc. Yew tree front drive. Any comments, please? Councillor Barrett.
Hi. This one I do have an objection to. The sketch for the documentation is pretty poor as a starter, but basically what it's suggesting is the cutting down of one tree that has a TPO and another one that should have a number of branches and other bits and pieces removed, mainly ivy, I have to say. But the reasons given are that the client would like this to be done to be able to get a removal truck down the drive. I'm not sure that's a good planning reason for removing a TPO covered tree. And the second yew tree is to dismantle it to near ground level because it's encroaching on the drive, which I appreciate that may be a concern. And they've offered up another tree to have a TPO put on it. And I don't think that's the right way to actually go about looking after trees. You can't just pick and choose which one you'd like to have a TPO on. So on that basis, I'd like to propose it's an objection from us.
Do I have a seconder for that proposal? That's a number of seconders. Any other comments in relation to that? So are we happy we've picked up the comments from Councillor Barrett? I think we have. If we can look at the video if we need to. So all those in favour then, please. Thank you very much. No one against. So we'll then move on to, yes, yeah. So we're now going to move on to item 11, planning application outcomes. So I think we're on 11B for yourself, Councillor Patel, aren't we? So just 11A is the planning application outcomes. Any comments, members, in relation to planning application outcomes? Lots of activity. I'm not seeing any hands or anything. So can I take that this item is to be noted? Excellent. So we'll then move now on to 11B. So Councillor Patel, thank you. So so this is in relation to the red line planning appeal. So this has been dealt with on a number of occasions. This is essentially the notification that there is a planning appeal hearing on the 21st or 22nd of November at a place to be established with. I think it's more than likely that it's going to be at Chicksand, but we're not absolutely sure. So what we are looking to do here is to have a representation from the town council to attend that appeal on the if the town council feels it's appropriate to do so. You've had the papers in front of you showing what our previous objections were. We felt that was appropriate to have a hard copy as well as the link to it. So I'm just looking for a sort of comments to start with, and then any nominations, please. Councillor Knight.
Thank you. I don't think we need to go into too much detail this evening. I am concerned that the owner appears to be proceeding with work for which they don't have planning permission, and I hope enforcement will be investigating that. I think we had a very strong objection. I know Central Beds rejected the application. I think our objection was possibly stronger than the Central Beds decision. So I think it's very important that someone from the town council does represent the council at that meeting. So I would propose that we ask officers to get further details and to make sure that somebody, one of the members is available to go, and we can revisit that nearer the time to determine exactly who.
Councillor Russell?
I'll second what's just been proposed, because I think we need to establish that we want a seat at the table. But we've got the dates, we haven't got the location. Lots of colleagues have got full-time jobs. We don't know quite who's going to be available. So I think we need to be able to establish who attends nearer the time. But we must be clear that we want representation.
Okay, I think we're clear on that, Councillor Gilcher.
Yeah, have officers reached CBC to ask enforcement to attend, to investigate? Okay. Officers ask CBC enforcement to attend.
I'm going to.
We have done. Karim can do an update. Thanks. So officers took an action from the last town council meeting to contact CBC enforcement officers and share information with them, as including photographic evidence, which was done. We received a series of responses, which include the fact that this one related mainly, my understanding, is to the wall, which had been taken down. And whilst they admitted, planning officers admitted that, enforcement officers admitted that, yes, the wall had been taken down without any kind of planning permission at all, and we're in contravention. That said, it was their view that because the wall was not a heritage wall or any wall of kind of considerable note, that they would not be directing or enforcing the people to put a new wall in its place for now. So that's kind of how we've ended it so far on that action.
Okay, so given that that there appears to be additional activity, would that be fair to say? Our members, although this is not an item on the agenda, I think it's probably appropriate to say that I'm getting the feeling that perhaps members feel it's appropriate for office to then escalate this further on the basis of additional information. So if we're accepting that previously it was the wall, but then may now be other elements of changes to the building that seem to contravene the planning permission, or the lack of planning permission in relation to this, that it's an item for enforcement. So Councillor Knight, do you want to?
So I've received some quite alarming allegations about internal works, and I'd be pleased to share that with officers after the meeting, and maybe they can share that and escalate that CBC enforcement perhaps need to look a little bit more deeply.
So on that basis, members, are you happy with that approach? Some seeing nods. Okay, so we had a proposal in relation to this item. We had a seconder. So all those in favour to that approach in relation to the appeal, please show. Thank you. But we do need to make sure it does come back. So at the next meeting, especially if we have information, we can't let it slide. Okay. I'm going to then invite Councillor Patel back into the building. Okay, so next item then, item 12, accounts. Management accounts report is attached to the pack, and as detailed, the usual financial documentation is on the Town Council website. So you've got the four headings there. Councillor Strawn, did you wish to make any comments?
No, I think the report is self-evident in itself. I just think welcome the explanations that we're now getting beside them, and the documentation is on the website, I believe.
Go ahead, Peter.
I just wanted to make an apology, actually. There's a formatting error on page 30 when the document was PDF'd, and I know that the head of finance would want me to say that, so I'm sorry for that format error when it progressed into the final report. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments?
At the point A, when we are talking about financial documentation is available on the council website as follows, would it be probably good to add where exactly it could be found? I was trying to find it yesterday, couldn't.
I think it's appropriate to have to make sure that it is available on the papers that go to. They are actually there on the council website under financial transparency. Thank you. I was thinking of the financial transparency. So about the council, financial transparency, and then at the top now there is a section that says monthly accounts. So if you click on that, it then drops that down. So there has been a sort of a change within just recently to make sure that it's more accessible. Given that I think AGAR was at the top, and there's a number of changes that have been made. Councillor Russell.
I'm just supporting what Councillor Agnew has said, because we're trying to make this transparent for members of the public. So that explanation or a link should be in the introduction to this item.
So given that it's on the website, I think the issue we have, if you put a website link in the minutes, it's quite challenging to put a link on there. For members on our it's fairly straightforward to do, to put a link to the website. I think there may be some, it's straightforward. It is under about the council financial transparency, but I appreciate that we need to make it easier for members of the public. Go ahead, Peter.
So why don't I just make everybody's life a lot easier and put information onto SharePoint? Do you want it on there?
No, it's meant to be public. It must be on the public website.
It is on the public
website. And it
website.
needs to explain here exactly where, because this is supposed to be transparent for members of the public, not just for councillors.
So I think what we're saying is, Councillor Russell, I think I'm getting that if we can have the path shown, so the path is there, it's quite straightforward.
Fine.
Yeah.
Will do.
Thank you. Any other comments in relation to the actual detail rather than the where it is? Councillor Barrett.
I'd like to get one question, and it's relating to the balance sheet. And I appreciate there may not be officers here who can answer this, but so I can take the question outside. But it's to do with the total current assets. I was looking to try and find where the liabilities for capital projects already identified are shown in the accounts, and I can't see that on the balance sheet.
Can you pick that up outside the meeting? Is that okay?
Yes, please. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments, members? So I have a proposal, I think, did I have a proposal?
But note it.
So a proposal to note, do I have anyone seconding? Thank you. All those in favour, please. Thank you. Lovely. So we have no items for information, and we've dealt with, I think, everything else. So we'll move then to the public open session. Any members of the public wishing to speak? No. We have no exempt items. So on that basis, I can say the meeting